What's the good word, Josh? Your boy DKB here. We are on day 6 of training camp, our second official padded practice, and with that brings the promise of more offensive dysfunction. We have more errant snaps to Aaron Rodgers, Tyrod Taylor, pretty much every quarterback. We have another Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, spirited argument, if you want to call it that, and we'll get into the host of other issues. So let's talk about the generics of everything, as always. Starting with the argument between Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Now, from what I was able to dig up, there were not just one, but a handful of miscues, especially during a, gotta have it portion of team drills where we were down 20-17. They had to go the length of the field starting from the 30, and it just didn't ultimately go well, right? So after one of the miscues, Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, and a lot of people are blowing her up, right? It's not like they're in each other's faces. They're going crazy, but we know how passionate Garrett Wilson is about wanting to be perfect out there on the field. We know how traumatic it's been for him as a receiving weapon for the New York Jets and what he's had to do to get to this point in his career. So he's demanding nothing but the best out of Aaron Rodgers, and that's exactly the way that I view these arguments. These need to occur, right? This is something that in season I'm not even angry about if we end up seeing it happening. It reminds me a lot of what I heard from, and I think it was Devontae Adams on Receivers, the Netflix show or a series where he was mentioning there was a fade route being thrown to Devontae Adams on the left side of the field. They couldn't connect on it. He ran into the huddle, pretty much shouted and told Aaron Rodgers to run it back, give him the ball. Aaron Rodgers kind of taken aback, and he made it happen, right? There's a little bit more nuance with the New York Jets situation, but effectively, I think that's what we are seeing develop here. In terms of roster moves, fullback Nick Bawden just came off PUP and got promoted to the streets. He has been released, and we've replaced his roster spot with tight end Anthony Ferkser. So I'm not sure what all happened there, right? Maybe it's still something injury related. Who knows? But definitely an interesting move for the Jets, considering the affinity we know they have for the fullback. Aaron Rodgers confirmed via Robert Saleh, as much as you can get a confirmation out of him. We really shouldn't expect to see him during the preseason. His best shot at being seen is going to be similar to last year, maybe a series or two versus the Giants in the final preseason game as a quick tune-up to get on pace with the rest of his offensive counterparts. But outside of that, the bubble wrap is in full, bloom, if you will, and there's no plans to put him at risk. We need to get him to the season again and get him out of that first game without too many concerns, especially considering the fact that we've already had at least 2 major injury concerns so far during the offseason. So I can understand the precautionary measures being taken here, as much as we want him to be seen. Ultimately, whatever he does in preseason games, doesn't matter if he throws 10 touchdowns in one quarter, isn't going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Adrian Martinez, our QB, he's finally getting worked into some team drills. As you guys know, this is the UFL MVP that we brought in for competition purposes with Andrew Peasley, and to give us another camp arm and make sure with the additional amount of reps we've been able to eke out that everybody's getting proper what do you want to say, playing at full strength, right, for lack of better words. Some injury concerns, right? Some stuff that we need to find out more about. Jalen Holmes, defensive lineman, and wide receiver Tyler Harrell did not finish practice. We got to see what exactly is happening. In Tyler Harrell's case, it's bad because he's just coming off a PUP himself, and it looks like he may be dealing with another leg injury. In Jalen Holmes' case, not sure what his drill is, but I heard he has been an underrated positive addition to this roster once again as well, making an impact throughout some of these practices. Tack McKinley, who's been going off since he's showed up to training camp, has not practiced today. No reason why. I don't imagine it's necessarily a vet day, right? Because he's not in the same camp as guys like a Morgan Moses or a Tyron Smith, or even a CJ Mosley, I would say, to that extent, who I don't think is on any kind of a revised schedule. So more to come hopefully on that tomorrow. And then Morgan Moses, we are expecting to see return within a couple days if Robert Saleh's timeline proves accurate. And that should complete finally having all 5 of our starting offensive linemen on the field at one time, running through some of these drills for what feels like the first time in forever. The last couple off seasons, we haven't even really been able to get all of them together in one setting. We've had to wait until in season, and then things have broken down even further. So great news on that front. Diving into some of these player issues, and as a whole, I'll talk about this before we get into the player itself. More snap problems have persisted, right? And at this point, it's not even just Tippmann. We're starting to get some of the further news coming out. You're seeing guys like Chris Glazer taking snaps as well, and you're still seeing the same issue. And to be honest, I have thoughts on this that to me make sense, but we'll see what you guys think. So let's dive into some of the on-field work. Rodgers, another so-so day. 10 of 19 from what I saw in team drills, 1 of 3 and 7 on 7s. And the gotta have it drive that I mentioned went 2 of 7. That's the drive that ultimately led to the Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers spat. Spirited argument, heated debate, whatever you want to call it. But all in all, this is mainly due to the miscues of the offense than anything really occurring with Aaron Rodgers. Still some slight accuracy issues from what I've seen, a few of the call-outs. But otherwise, Aaron Rodgers is still very much so in charge of the offense and trying its best to compete against this elite defense in spite of all the mistakes that are being made, and still trying to get on the same page with all of his teammates. So take it in stride. Now that the pads are on, this should have fully been the expectation anyways. Again, it can't be understated. Ferocity, overwhelming power, speed. The defense really has it all. So anybody should be challenged if they're not, dotting all their I's, crossing all their T's on their P's and Q's, etc. Tippmann, let's dive into him, right? So still suffering from issues, high snap syndrome. Now, some of the things that I've seen point out there is the fact that we have to keep in mind the center position is a little complicated, right? They have to make the checks at the line of scrimmage, protection calls, making sure they're accounting for blitzes, and that's even if you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers behind you. In the event, as we've seen with many times where you have a rookie or a guy that's not really acclimated to the NFL, they're going to be doing even more to try to make their QB comfortable and to help them out. But from my purview, here's the issue, right? And I think any center we bring in would essentially have this problem, if not a different version of this, is that Tippmann's facing down Quinnen Williams and Javon Kinlaw. Quinnen Williams, a certified top 3 guy at his position. Javon Kinlaw, the creature of MetLife, right? 6'7" or 6'5"-ish, now about 330-ish pounds. Both boast a ton of power. Quinnen Williams, some underrated speed. Javon Kinlaw, some underrated get off. And so not only is he making all these calls to make sure things are exactly the way Aaron Rodgers wants it, how he should be seeing it, but then he has to try to snap this ball off and get his hands up to somehow have a chance against either one of these two monsters. And it could be a lot. I could see the focus for him being, I just need to get this ball out of here. Aaron Rodgers is 6'2"-ish. He'll be able to get it. And again, keep in mind, a lot of this, from what I understand, is still coming out of shotgun formation. I don't know. It's the best excuse, quote unquote, that I would have for the issues we're seeing with Joe Tippmann here, and it does make a ton of sense to me. Granted, I still wouldn't want to see these, but there's a lot of time to get this fixed, and to be honest, he's been putting in extra work, from my understanding, before and after practice, trying to address this, so I don't expect this to go on for more than, let's say, a week, even though I wouldn't want to see it go on for that long, but we'll see exactly if that continues to happen. Tariq Cohen, vision in the return game is impressing Brant Boyer, and at this point it looks like if he earns a role, it's definitely going to be because of his return prowess, although there were a few mistakes today, which we'll get into from the defensive aspect a little later. Malachi Corley, one-handed grab down the sideline via Rodgers. He's being worked into the first team now. with Xavier Gipson still being out for potentially about another week, and plenty of players have been able to take advantage of it. The player that has been able to do the most will be coming up soon, but from what I understand, Corley's grab was one of the best ones of the day. Jason Brownlee getting involved a little bit. Now, he did have a deep sideline grab from Peasley, third string unit, but when he got a chance to bump up and replace Alan Lazard in the gotta have it period, he did drop a pass from Rogers, subbing in for Lazard, and I think he had the breath knocked out of him. I saw Lazard, pretty solid day. Once again, all things considered, he did have a drop to begin practice, but it looks like he's starting to recapture some of that starting ability and form that we would have been counting on for why we offered him the contract. Had himself a huge one-handed catch towards the end of practice, and then a pretty solid contested sideline grab with Reed draped all over him. So continuing to stack positive days together, that's the best that we can ask from him. But the player that has been benefiting the most, without a doubt, with Xavier Gipson being out, Malachi Corley being raw, Alan Lazard essentially still just being a wide receiver 4 in the system, has been Malik Taylor, a name that has flashed in previous off seasons for us that we've had him, but by all accounts, he's had the most targets through these training camp practices when you combine him stepping up into the first string team and then his reps in the second string unit when Tyrod Taylor is quarterbacking. Either way, he's been essentially both quarterbacks' best friend to a degree, if you want to put it that way. Had himself a big catch from Tyrod on the sideline. Deep ball with Miles Jones draped on him in coverage, again via Tyrod, although he did get a missed opportunity to impress Rodgers on a deep ball when he bumped up to the first string. But this is encouraging news. This is a guy that I was kind of ready to write off just because it seemed like another Jeff Smith situation, which I've highlighted before. But the fact that he's able to continue to find a way to get into the first string, and again, there's some absences here and some voids of talent, right? If Mike Williams and or Xavier Gipson was here, I doubt you're seeing him that often in the first string unit, but it does speak a lot volume-wise that he is the most targeted receiver not named Garrett Wilson, right? And even ahead of him, again, when you combine him going from first string to second string. Speaking about defense, Zaire Barnes, our linebacker, year 2 in the system, had a pass breakup versus Cohen. Stiggers continuing to impress. He had a pass breakup when Tyler Harrell was on the field, which is all the more impressive because I believe Tyler Harrell was the speed demon that I broke down in my undrafted free agent series. Javon Kinlaw had himself a sack on Tyrod for the first play when the second string unit hit the field. Clemens got himself a fumble recovery thanks to some kind of mishandled toss to Breece Hall via Aaron Rodgers when first string was still on the field. McDonald, Quinnen, Solomon Thomas. McDonald and Solomon, they split for a sack. Quinnen Williams got himself a full sack. DJ Reed had a nice pass breakup versus Garrett Wilson, getting a little bit of revenge since he's just been getting, torn every which way but loose when he's been out on the field and matched up against him. Jerk Bernard Converse continues to impress, being a convert once again to the cornerback ranks. An interception versus Tyrod, a pass breakup versus our newly minted quarterback, Adrian Martinez, and then ultimately Chad Surratt got in on the fun with a tackle versus loss versus Cohen. So, all in all, I guess the highlights are the defense is the defense. our second and third string units are finding ways to continue to impress. The offense is chipping away at a lot of these negative self-inflicted wounds, which are still creeping up and or need to be resolved, right? If this continues for 3, 4, 5 consecutive practices, it becomes a problem. You do have to think about it in the light of this is an elite defense versus an offense that's still trying to string things together, right? Players on the defensive side that have 3, 4 years in the system versus the offense that has an OC almost nobody trust versus players in their second year of the system and really relying on the tutelage and advantages of having a guy like Aaron Rodgers back there to help elevate the games of everybody. So it should realistically be lopsided, but I guess the counter argument is that if Aaron Rodgers is that dude, we expect him to be, which is why we signed him to get us a Super Bowl ring, he will find a way to overcome it, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly what he will get done. So let me know what you guys think about day 6 of practice, highlights, etc., and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.